Looking to add extra immersion for your Sonos soundbar, but torn on which way to go for surround sound rears? Let's find the best solution for your home. Hey guys, Elliot here, and we're back with a heavily requested video, all around adding rear surrounds to your Sonos home cinema setup. As there are a lot of different options, ranging in price from as low as £200 right up to £1,000 plus, it can be really hard to tell which is going to be the best solution for your space. So we've got some top tips for adding rears, and we'll share with you all the different options and the pros and cons for each to help you make the right choice. If you find this video helpful, we'd love it if you could leave us a comment letting us know, and subscribe for more Sonos content. If you want to support us and you're based in the UK, then head over to Smart Home Sounds and make the most of our extended 6-year warranty. Adding a pair of surround sound rears to your Sonos soundbar can have a massive impact on the immersion you get for your movies, music, gaming, and more. Rears place you more in the center of the action and work alongside your soundbar to deliver surround sound to replicate what you might experience in a cinema, with sound passing behind you and to the sides. You'll need 2 of the same speakers set up to the left and right of your seating position, and these will connect wirelessly to your chosen Sonos soundbar. Adding these speakers as surrounds will disable certain features, including Bluetooth, AirPlay, line-in functionality, and any other subwoofer out connections your rears may have, so just bear that in mind as well. Now, no 2 rooms are the same, and the positioning of your surrounds will depend on your space and your seating area, but there is some general guidance worth noting. We usually recommend placing your rears at listening height, so roughly around ear height. You can do this by placing them on a unit, on stands, or wall mounting them. If you are wall mounting them higher up, then we do suggest angling the speaker down towards your seating position. Of course, ceiling speakers are the exception to this rule, and the general advice is that you should also angle your speakers slightly inwards towards where you're sat. However, if you opt for the Era 300 rears, then leave them facing forwards. They'll channel the sound in the right direction, so no need to worry about that. Now, you should already be familiar with the Sonos app, but there are some key adjustments you should make when adding rears, especially if you can't place your rears in the optimal place, as this will help you make the most of your rears. Right, so I've just stepped into our showroom and we've got a pair of Era 100s here, and I'm going to run you through a few optimal placement tips and a couple of things in the app you can do to really maximize your performance. Now, you might notice this isn't the optimal setup, but I don't think that's a bad thing, because I know a lot of you are going to be in the same boat. We're right up against the wall, there's only one seating area and things like that. So instead of going for wall mounted rears, we've gone for floor standing, and instead of having them pointed towards the TV, we've actually decided to turn them inwards at like a 45-degree angle to sort of really push the audio towards where we are going to be sitting, which is a nice thing to do if you want the best performance. Right, the first thing you're going to want to do is true play tuning. Now, I recommend that for every single space, but especially if you're not quite at optimum. And all that's going to do is acoustically fine-tune your speakers so they perform the best in your space. So to true play tune in a setup like this one, you're going to want to do it twice. The first of those, though, is going to be in your ideal seating position. And for me, that's right in the middle of the sofa. So all you've got to do, hold your iOS device up like this and then tap tune. Step 2, we've got to walk around the room. So now you guys have true play tuned, there's a couple of surround audio settings that I think are worth going through just to get a little bit more from your speakers. So you want to tap into that. The first thing you can do is obviously turn your surrounds off and on. You can also change the amount of audio that comes through your rears, and that can be different for TV and music, just depends on your preferences. You can change your music playback to either ambient or full. The last one here is surround distance, which isn't as important if you've already done true play tuning, but definitely worth having correct if you can. So for me, under 2 feet. Okay, so you'll need to bear in mind what your spaces are like and how you could accommodate surrounds while we cover all of your different options, as this will play a part in what rears will work best for you. If you want in-depth reviews of any of the speakers we cover in this video, then I'll link them all in the description below for you. Starting with the most affordable solution then, the Sonos IKEA Symfonisk range. This range starts from as little as £200 for a pair of bookshelf speakers, but you've also got the IKEA lamp and frame, which come in at £400 and £440 a pair respectively. The best thing about the Symfonisk range is that all of the speakers have been designed to blend into your home and offer a discrete audio solution. So for anyone not keen on adding even more speakers into their living room, then this might be the way to go. The bookshelf speakers are not going to have a huge impact as rears, given they are an entry-level solution, but they will add some additional immersion if you're looking for a little boost. I'd really only recommend these for the more compact spaces. The frame and lamp, however, are a step up in performance and offer a comparative performance to something like the Sonos One or One SL, with the frame offering slightly more bass. For me, this will entirely come down to your space and the type of appearance you want to get from your surround sounds. If it's minimalism you want, and you like the design of the frame or the lamp, then these could be a great solution for your space. Right, moving on to the Sonos One SLs then. These have probably been the most popular solution for adding surround sound rears to a Sonos soundbar over the past few years, and they come in at an RRP of £358 per pair. With no mics for voice control, the SLs are a more affordable solution and deliver a very decent surround sound performance for most spaces. The lack of a mic is actually a great hack for saving money if you have the Beam or Arc. Both are voice-enabled soundbars, which means you can actually use the mics in them for voice control. We would generally recommend One SLs with a Sonos Beam or a Sonos Ray first and foremost, but in a small to medium-sized space, they can be a good addition to a Sonos Arc too. The SLs are compact speakers, so still pretty minimalist to add into your home, and considering their compact form factor, offer a great surround sound performance. We start to see a step up in surround sound performance with the Era 100s as rears, which come in at £498 a pair. The Era 100s are an evolution on the Sonos One and add a 25% larger woofer and an additional tweeter. In general, we wouldn't necessarily recommend people who already have Sonos One Gen 2 or One SL rears to go out and replace them with Era 100s, as you're not going to get a massive step up in performance. But for anyone coming in fresh looking for surround sound rears, then the Era 100s are the sweet spot of the lineup. When we've tested them out versus One SLs, we found that it's a more noticeable difference when you don't have a subwoofer in your system. The addition of the extra bass is most noticeable when there's an effect from behind you which has more bass. So, for example, there's a scene in James Bond No Time to Die where they're being shot at in the car, and when the effects are coming from behind you, they've got more weight and more impact, which definitely adds to the immersion. I think you also get a slightly more expansive sound given that the Era 100s are stereo speakers, not mono speakers like the One SLs, so they do a better job of producing a much wider soundstage. For me, the Era 100s are great surround sound speakers that are a good fit for any Sonos soundbar and will work in almost any space. They are slightly taller than the One SLs, but still pretty discreet to have behind your seating area. This is where we really start to step up in both price and performance. A pair of Era 300 surround sound rears come in at £898, so almost double a pair of Era 100s. But I have to say, these really are the ultimate Sonos surround sound rears. As Dolby Atmos enabled speakers, these are only compatible with the Dolby Atmos soundbar. So right now that's the Beam Gen 2 or the Sonos Arc. The Era 300s are a completely different designer speaker with one front firing tweeter, one upwards firing tweeter, two sideways firing tweeters, and two sideways firing woofers. The idea is that sound will bounce off your ceiling and walls to create a 3D sound experience, which places you more in the action. For example, if a car drives around you, you won't just experience it going past from left to right, but all the way around the room. These are the only Sonos surround sound options available right now with upwards firing capabilities to help place sounds above you for added height immersion. Now, it's worth mentioning that when the Era 300s are used as surrounds, the front firing tweeter is disabled. Now, we've seen loads of discussion around why this might be, and a rep from Sonos in one of the forums has shared that this is actually an engineering decision by Sonos following testing, and that this offers the best experience for your content. It's possible they could add the option to toggle that on and off depending on your preference, and it will be interesting to see how that would change performance. But the whole point of the Era 300s is to give a different experience to your standard surround sound rears. If you do want a more standard directional effect, then any of the other speakers mentioned in this video will be your best bet. In particular, I think the Era 300s are a big upgrade for the Sonos Beam Gen 2, which offers virtual height channels. The Era 300s bring a more immersive experience and help elevate what you get from the Beam for a big upgrade in overall performance. For those looking for the ultimate setup, then adding Era 300s to the Sonos Arc is the way to go. The height channels from the Arc and the 300s work together as the 0.4 in your system, meaning you'll get front and back height effects, not just one. So if a plane flies overhead, it will start on the front Arc height channels and end at the back of you, giving you the full 3D audio experience. And the result is a pretty awesome home cinema setup, which really places the sounds all around you. Add in a Sonos Sub Gen 3 and it's another level of performance. Of course, if you add 2 subs, then you can achieve a 7.2.4 Sonos home cinema setup, which is something we've been asking for a long time. For those not sure whether to go for the Era 100s or Era 300s as surrounds, then part of your decision will also come down to how much Atmos content you watch. If the answer is not a lot, then you might not need all that the Era 300s offer. But on the whole, the Era 300s are far more powerful speakers than the Era 100s, and the positioning of the different speakers firing sound all around creates a far more immersive experience, no matter what you're watching. They certainly aren't a cheap surround sound solution, but for those with the budget and looking for the best home cinema experience Sonos offer, then this is definitely the way to go. So what about the Sonos Fives then? Well, these come in at £1,098 a pair, so they're the most expensive solution so far. On the whole, these are still Sonos' top-end speakers and the biggest and most powerful ones too. They offer a totally different experience from the Era 300s, so it's hard to say whether one is actually better than the other, but if you have any interest in experiencing the immersion that comes from Atmos-enabled rears with upwards firing capabilities, then you should go for the Era 300s. However, if it's not the height and 3D sound that's a priority and you want the most powerful solution Sonos offer, then the Fives offer a bigger sound with more bass. Again, they are an expensive addition to a Sonos soundbar, and I think that both the Fives and the 300s will be overkill for certain spaces. But for larger rooms and for those looking to really experience big cinematic sound from home, then the Fives will give you that. It's also worth considering the Fives if you have a larger space and will be using your system for music as well as movies, as these are the best option for music when used with a soundbar. So what if you don't have the space for speakers behind your sofa, or you simply want a more discreet solution for your home? Well, there is the option of adding in-ceiling speakers or in-wall speakers with the Sonos amp. Now, you don't need to use Sonos's in-wall or in-ceiling solutions if you have a different brand you would prefer, you just need to use the Sonos amp to get it all connected. The Sonos amp comes in at £699, and for context, the Sonos in-walls are £599 a pair, and in-ceiling are £699 a pair. So we're looking at a budget of around £1,200 to £1,400, but that will vary depending on the speakers you go for. Now, you will need more planning for these surrounds, as you'll need to get everything wired up and cut holes in either your walls or your ceiling, but they will give you a more aesthetic solution. In general, wall speakers replicate the effects you get from standard rears as they're placed around listening height and project sound into the room. In-ceiling speakers, however, will offer a different type of surround sound immersion. We generally find that people prefer the effects and experience when speakers are at listening height, but that's not to say you won't see improvements from adding in-ceiling speakers. When we've tested it in our office, some people really like the effect it creates, while others prefer the traditional surround sound approach with sound coming from behind you. I think these are mainly for those with a room where you want surround sound, but you don't want to spoil the visuals. In general, there's no one best solution for surround sound rears, as it's so dependent on your budget, your space, what effect you're looking for, and the soundbar you're pairing with. If I could speak to you all individually to give you personal advice, I would, but I'll have to settle for helping you guys out in the comments if you're still torn. Or feel free to get in touch with one of our tech guides if you're based in the UK, and they'd be more than happy to help. Comment down below which surround sound rears you choose out of this lineup, and don't forget to share any tips you have to help the community out. Thanks for watching, catch you in the next video.